I have a lot of people who have asked me for pardons. I call him Puff Daddy has asked me for a pardon.
Why would Sean Diddy Combs, at the moment when his legal troubles were rapidly closing in, reach out to former President Donald Trump for help? And why was that request firmly rejected? According to statements, Diddy's legal team did contact Trump, seeking support as pressure mounted. But Trump chose to distance himself and made it clear he would not get involved. This single moment raises a much deeper question. What kind of relationship did Trump and Diddy really share in the past? And why did Diddy believe that this former connection might still offer protection? For years, the two moved in the same elite circle, attending high-profile events, parties, and gatherings where wealth, power, and influence overlap. Now, as Diddy faces serious legal challenges and the possibility of prison, that old door has been closed. To understand why the letter was sent, why help was sought, and why it was refused, it is necessary to look back at their history and examine how a once public friendship faded when legal accountability replaced celebrity loyalty. Hello everyone, I'm Chris, and welcome to Chris Talk, the place where thoughts meet honesty and sometimes a little bit of overthinking. Before we begin, do me a tiny favor, please subscribe and press the bell icon so you get notifications for all our new videos, because it really supports my journey and helps this channel grow, and it means a lot to me. Now let's get straight back to today's topic and dive in together. Before the investigation, before the raids, and long before the threat of prison became a reality, Sean Diddy Combs and Donald Trump were not strangers to one another. They were figures who moved within the same elite social universe, a world defined by wealth, celebrity, access, and influence, where powerful businessmen, entertainers, and political figures often crossed paths at private gatherings, luxury events, and high-profile parties. And during the height of Diddy's rise as a music and lifestyle mogul, Trump was already a dominant presence in New York's upper social circles, known for his real estate empire, his media persona, and his visibility in celebrity culture, which created an environment where their paths naturally intersected, not once, but repeatedly over the years. Photographs, interviews, and public records from the late 1990s and early 2000s show them attending the same events, exchanging compliments in media appearances, and speaking of one another in a tone that suggested familiarity rather than distance, with Trump at times referring to Diddy as a successful and talented businessman, and Diddy acknowledging Trump as a powerful figure within the New York social and financial landscape. At that time, both men represented different but parallel forms of influence. Trump as a symbol of real estate power and media visibility, and Diddy as a symbol of cultural dominance, shaping not only music but fashion, nightlife, television, and branding on a global scale. Their relationship was not necessarily one of close personal friendship in the traditional sense, but it was rooted in shared spaces, mutual recognition, and the unspoken understanding that comes from operating at the highest levels of fame and wealth, where access is limited and networks are carefully maintained. As Diddy's career expanded through Bad Boy Records, the success of artists like the Notorious B.I.G., and later ventures into fashion with Sean John, television production, liquor partnerships, and luxury entertainment, his public image became that of a man who had mastered not only the music industry, but the broader machinery of influence, positioning himself alongside CEOs, politicians, and global financiers. And it was within this world that his connection to Trump existed, not as an isolated relationship, but as part of a larger network of powerful figures who shared similar environments and benefited from the same systems of access and protection. For years, Diddy was seen as untouchable, a figure whose wealth and cultural status placed him beyond ordinary scrutiny, and whose relationships with influential individuals reinforced the perception that he was deeply embedded within circles where problems could be managed quietly and reputation could be preserved. However, beneath the surface of that success, tension and suspicion had existed for decades, particularly within the music industry itself, where certain figures questioned the culture of silence that surrounded powerful executives. One of the most persistent voices in that space was Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, who from the early 2000s onward openly challenged Diddy's image and character, often in ways that seemed confrontational, humorous, or exaggerated at times, but which now appear in a different light. According to Jackson, his distrust of Diddy began during his early interactions within the industry, including a moment at the wedding of music executive Chris Lighty, where he later stated that a request from Diddy made him deeply uncomfortable and gave him the sense that power and control were being tested rather than friendship being offered. From that point forward, Jackson's public commentary, lyrics, and later social media presence consistently painted Diddy as a figure whose influence extended into areas that were rarely questioned and rarely challenged. In 2006, Jackson's song The Bomb directly suggested that Diddy allegedly knew more than he admitted about the unsolved murder of Christopher the Notorious B.I.G. Wallace, a claim that has never been proven in court and for which Diddy has never been charged, but one that contributed to a long-running undercurrent of suspicion that followed him throughout his career. While the industry largely continued to celebrate Diddy's success, these allegations, combined with stories from insiders and the persistent commentary from rivals, created a narrative that something darker existed behind the polished image of the billionaire mogul. For years, that narrative remained on the margin, overshadowed by awards, business deals, and media praise, influence, until the rise of social media gave figures like 50 Cent a direct channel to speak to the public without traditional gatekeeping, turning what once would have been dismissed as backstage talk into widely consumed commentary. From 2014 onward, the rivalry between 50 Cent and Diddy became highly visible through what the media later referred to as the Vodka Wars, when Jackson partnered with Effin' Vodka and openly targeted Diddy's association with Ciroc, using humor and marketing competition as a platform to continue questioning Diddy's character and behavior. While much of this was presented as entertainment, Jackson repeatedly hinted that his criticism went beyond business, implying that he believed serious truths would eventually come to light. For nearly a decade, these statements were largely viewed as part of hip-hop culture's tradition of rivalry and bravado, rather than as warnings rooted in genuine concern. The turning point came in November 2023, when singer Cassie Ventura filed a lawsuit alleging years of abuse, coercion, and trafficking involving Diddy. Accusations that were detailed, specific, and deeply disturbing. And although the case was settled within 24 hours, the legal system did not simply move on, because the filing reportedly triggered broader federal attention and a re-examination of Diddy's activities, relationships, and business operations. Legal documents and investigative reporting began referencing what were described as alleged drug-fueled events organized in controlled environments. And while the full scope of these claims remains subject to due process, their emergence fundamentally altered the public conversation around Diddy, shifting it from speculation and rivalry to formal investigation and potential criminal liability. In March 2024, that shift became impossible to ignore when federal agents carried out coordinated raids on Diddy's properties in Los Angeles and Miami, executing search warrants, seizing electronic devices, financial records, and physical material, including large quantities of lubricants that were later referenced in official reporting, images that quickly spread across global media and symbolized the seriousness of the inquiry. For the first time, the image of Diddy was no longer that of a distant, untouchable executive, but of a subject under active federal scrutiny. And it was in this climate of escalating legal pressure that his past relationships, including his connection to Donald Trump, took on new significance. As investigations expanded and indictments began to take shape, it became clear that Diddy was no longer operating within a space where influence alone could control outcome. And according to statements now made public, his legal team reached out to Trump, seeking support and possibly assistance as the reality of potential charges and incarceration became unavoidable. This outreach was not merely symbolic. It represented a return to a network that once embodied power, status, and protection, a reminder of the era when both men moved freely among elites and shared environments where problems could often be managed behind closed doors. The fact that Trump declined to become involved and later publicly distanced himself marked a decisive break from that past, signaling that the relationship, whatever its nature once was, no longer carried weight in the face of legal accountability and political calculation. Trump's rejection was more than a personal decision. It reflected a broader transformation in how influence operates when federal investigations are involved, illustrating that connections formed in social and business contexts do not necessarily translate into protection when legal risk becomes too great. For Diddy, this moment symbolized isolation, the realization that even those who once stood within his circle of familiarity and mutual recognition were unwilling to stand beside him as his situation deteriorated. For the public, it offered a rare glimpse into how power networks function under pressure, revealing the limits of loyalty when reputation, politics, and legal consequences intersect. This development also reframed the long-standing warnings issued by figures like 50 Cent, whose decades of criticism, once dismissed as rivalry, now appeared aligned with a broader pattern of concern that the industry had failed to confront. As federal charges related to racketeering and prostitution-connected offenses were later revealed, and as a judge described the conduct outlined in the case as an abuse of power, the narrative surrounding Diddy shifted permanently, from that of a celebrated mogul to that of a man facing serious legal reckoning. It was within this context that the outreach to Trump and the subsequent rejection came to symbolize the collapse of a system in which influence and proximity to power once offered security, marking the beginning of a new phase in which legal accountability, rather than celebrity loyalty, would define the outcome. And for now, thank you for watching. Leave a comment on which topic I should cover in next video, and be sure to subscribe your Chris channel and press the bell icon for more in-depth stories like this.